Dr. Andy Smith, Chief Medical Executive and Executive Vice President at Sunnybrook Hospital. You hold many titles, even at the University of Toronto. Just tell me about some of the titles you have and what you do.
Well, right now I am, as you said, I'm the EVP and Chief Medical Executive here at Sunnybrook, and really that's my main role now, and I got to tell you, that keeps me busy most of the time. Sometimes it seems like 24/7. My role in the university up until recently was that I was the Bernard and Rina Langer Chair of General Surgery at the University of Toronto, which is a terrific leadership role, looking over leading and working with all the general surgeons at the University of Toronto. But for now, the two roles that you mentioned are what I devote my time to.
I know prior to being a doctor, you worked at a hotel and a restaurant. How much did that help you prepare for becoming a doctor in surgery life?
So you've done your homework. Yes, I did. I did from the time I was 12 till I was about 19. Had the opportunity and the privilege to work in the hotel and restaurant business at a place called the Flying Dutchman Hotel in Bowmanville, which has many fond memories for me. The Flying Dutchman, I started there as a bellboy, and I remember that well. I was a little guy then and carrying bags up to people's rooms, and the tips were actually pretty good. I remember the Americans used to tip really well, and that was a lot of good times. I think it taught me a lot of things, and of course at the time you don't realize it. You realize a lot of these things in retrospect. But it taught me how to deal with a really busy working environment where there's a lot of things going on at one time. It also taught me the important stuff in the service industry, and I'm a big fan of pointing out to people that that's what we're in healthcare. We're in the public service industry. How do we take care of people? Or I sometimes call it the how can I help business, and that's probably something that I really learned in a really serious way from that experience in hotel and restaurant business.
And speaking of your ties to America, I know you did your fellowship in New York. Was there any specific reason why you went to America as opposed to continuing in Ontario, or was it just a change of scenery, I guess?
So I'm a proud Canadian and very proud of the training I've had at the University of Toronto. But one of the things that we do know as we enrich our university and our city and frankly, in fact, our country, is it's good to get something that's a little different. So if you have that kind of crucial stage in your career where you have an opportunity to go abroad and then you learn something and then bring it back, that can be really important. And for me, it was going to Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York. And in surgery, I remember one of my mentors, Paul Walker, once told me early on in my training, he said, Andy, you got to make sure you go get your BTA, which stands for Being to America. So I think that stuck with me. Yeah.
And speaking of UFT, what do you see the demand of resident students? Where are they going into? What field are they going into now? Like when they're specializing, what do you see are they choosing now? And what do you think there's a demand for?
So it's a tough question because the interesting thing, the University of Toronto Medical School classes is about 250 people, so it's a lot of people. And the interesting thing, the way it shakes out is that there's sort of something for everyone. In other words, it really never ceases to amaze me that it does end up that you get a sort of appropriate number of people interested in primary care or family practice, and then you'll get people interested in becoming neurosurgeons, for example. And the proportions, funnily enough, seem to work themselves out for the most part. There's obviously, it's never perfect, but and there's always a need for both specialists and for primary care doctors. If you pushed me right now and said, where in Canada is there a particular need? It's going to be outside of places like Toronto. It's going to be out in more rural places. There's no question that both in the specialist ranks and amongst primary care docs, there's a need in places outside of the city. Having said that, there's always turnover, always development of, for example, our teams here at Sunnybrook, and there's always new people coming in. And that, of course, that's real important for developing the richness of a team.
And when you decided you wanted to get into oncology and become a cancer doctor, was there a specific, reason why you wanted to do it, or was it just you found that it was something that you might be interested in?
That's a long story, but I knew from the first day of medical school that I wanted to be a surgeon.
Nice.
And I got involved with that very early, literally the first week of med school. Wow. And that fellow I told you about before, Dr. Paul Walker, he was my supervisor at the outset, and I remember it was the first week he asked, there was an event going on in Toronto for surgeons in the city, and they needed a bartender, and he got me to serve bar at that, and I got to meet a lot of people that very first day. And that sort of started a bunch of opening doors for me to get to learn people. But Dr. Walker was my mentor for 3 years, and he was a vascular surgeon. The idea was that I would become a vascular surgeon. But in my 4th year medical school, I had a really transformative experience with a particular patient when I was working on the cancer ward that it really kind of one of those things that kind of like you know, I have to say that would probably be the one moment in my life that I can really remember something that, you know, that was transformative. It's like, you know, I knew I was going to be a surgeon, but I knew I was going to be a cancer surgeon. And then the rest of the road, actually, it was hard to go through, but it was real clear what I wanted to do.
Sure. I know one thing you really tried to change was the waiting time. So this telemedicine thing, where you didn't want patients to be waiting in lines. Talk about that and why you decided to try to change that.
So telemedicine is, I think, just one of what's a whole range of new things in healthcare where technology meets healthcare. And it's just one, but it's a good example because we like to talk nowadays about patient-centered care or person-centered care. So what does that mean? Well, for example, if somebody has to drive 100 miles to see a really high-end specialist here, it takes a long time, and a lot of times they may be fragile or even sick at that point, so it's even more arduous than a regular 100-mile drive. Then they get here, and the parking's not cheap. Yeah. You got to pay the parking, right? And then you maybe wait in the waiting room, and then you see the doc, and it might be a really short visit, even if it's long. And sometimes that's really, really crucial. But sometimes you can say, well, you know what? Could we do this on a high definition telemedicine interaction where you have the physician here and then 100 miles, 100 kilometers, or whatever it is away, the patient, perhaps with their family, and maybe with a practitioner in their smaller community. I say, let's have that same interaction, but have it via technology. And I'll tell you something, it works out. You can just as well. And you know, what's really also important to note is that if you ask that patient, did you miss the 100-kilometer drive there, the 100-kilometer drive back, let's call it $30 parking charge, and the wait of 2 hours in the waiting room? I'll tell you what, there's a lot of times they say, you know what, thank you very much for setting this up, for using technology to make the same sort of interchange of communication between the doctor, the patient, and the family. And that's a good thing.
And you think there's any ways where this can continuously improve, or what would be, I guess, suggestions where you think in the next couple of years how it, I guess, keep it improving?
Well, there's so much happening in the realm of where technology meets healthcare, and of course, I'd like to stress that at its core, you've got to remember to keep the human interaction part intact. So that's key. I mean, never can and never should want to get away from that. But something that I'm really excited about is something we're doing here at Sunnybrook. It's called our My Chart. So this is something where in the old days, the quote unquote old days, the doctor would have the information and the patient sitting over there and they're kind of reading the chart and looking up, and it almost puts an unnecessary amount of mystery and so forth. And people thought, well, you can't give patients their results. I mean, but we've turned that upside down, and what we do now, all of our patients have an opportunity to have their records right at home on their own computer. So they log in, they get their own password. It's secure like banking. You go in, and then here's your blood tests. And I've got a couple family members myself who are families or patients here right now. So you can go in and they can say, well, Andy, look at my hemoglobin's a little low, or my creatinine's a little bit high. And it just kind of empowers the patient. It brings it sort of gets rid of what I think in the past was too much sort of paternalism in medicine, where there's this power differential, and it kind of levels the playing field. So you've got a patient and their family coming to a meeting, and they go, well, tell me about that result. What does that mean? And you know what? Someone says, I looked it up on Wikipedia. That's terrific. Wow. That's fantastic. You know, they're becoming much more educated. So
we got all the serious questions out of the way. So now we're going to go to some tweets and some photos. So you're a big hockey fan.
I am.
And you read an article in the Summit series, I remember a while back. Do you remember this article you read, and why do you like it?
The Summit series. I didn't know what article it was I wrote, but I can tell you the details of the Summit series and Paul Henderson's goal in the last minute of the 1972 series. I think I remember all of the Canadian victories from that point on, and sort of vividly recall Gretzky to Lemieux and scores, and certainly watching with my kids when Sidney Crosby scored to beat the U.S. in the 2010 Olympics in Vancouver. So I don't know. Is there an article that
It was, yeah, it was in the Globe and Mail that you really liked it and you posted it online. You really enjoyed it.
Okay, well, you know what? I should read my own Twitter account sometimes.
And I know you were really happy about Dalton McGuinty in the sunbed when he restricted that and he took it away. Why was that?
Well, that's a really important one because that talks about the restriction on tanning beds, which to me, I'm going to call that a no-brainer because everybody knows, people of all ages, but especially young people, are interested in looking good. And let's face it, if somebody gets a little bit of a tan, they look good, they feel better. But when you start moving that into tanning beds, which is increased and unnatural exposure, and we know that's associated with the risk of cancer. And melanoma, I mean, as an important message, that's a cancer. Some cancers are going down. That cancer is going up, and it's going up in young people, and we know the things that cause it. It's undue and excessive sun exposure, and tanning beds, it's basically like a license to promote cancer. I really think it's awful, and obviously people have to make their own decisions, but I think that there's certain things it's really important for where there's clear knowledge that it causes such a problem as melanoma to say, you know what? This is not right. So I do applaud the government for having taken action on that. Yeah.
I know you were strolling downtown one time looking for a place to eat, and the Hoof was closed. The Hoof? How sad were you about that?
I love the Black Hoof, So that the practitioner there, you've really done your homework. I'm smiling, and I might even be blushing a little bit here. But no, as far as Toronto restaurants go, I think that's one of the great things about Toronto. We've got this real diverse restaurants, and eating in Toronto. I mean, I used to live in New York. I got to tell you, New York has nothing on Toronto. You can get anything that you want in Toronto and find it in all parts of the city. And often had a good time going around with the kids to hockey in different parts of the city, and you find all these little places from people from around the world cooking great food. But the Black Hoof is one of my favorites, and I think I probably made comment about the proprietor there, Jen Ag, who is just great. The thing I like about her, she's so front of the house. How can I help? Like she's an example of someone where the service and the atmosphere is so important. The food's great, but it's the package that's great. The fact that you feel like it's got such a great vibe, and so that's definitely in my top. I'm going to say 5 Toronto restaurants. Having a good time. Yeah.
The Loblaws Carlton, you were so happy that opened downtown as well, right? Big fan of that, or is it close to home?
Loblaws Carlton, I'm happy about that place because that's right down by a lot of hockey. So Maple Leaf. So my daughter practices there, and I'm not going to lie to you, it's nice to go down and sit in the Loblaws and have a little something to eat and read instead of sitting in the cold arena. So, but it's a great place. Oh, it's a great part of Toronto and such a great landmark. The Maple Leaf Gardens, harkens back to finer times for the Toronto Maple Leafs, but it's still such a wonderful Toronto landmark.
For sure. And we got some photos here we're going to show you.
Oh,
and you just comment on them, all right? So this is a historical picture here.
My glasses?
Oh, sorry. This is a photo I really liked online. You're signing some papers here. Just tell me what you were doing here in this photo.
Yeah, so
the camera.
This is something that at Sunnybrook we're extremely proud of. And this is, right now, this is me and Minister Fenton Ferguson from Jamaica signing a relationship between Jamaica and Sunnybrook. And we have connections, partnerships both within Ontario in the healthcare system here, but we also take great pride in the fact that we connect with other health systems around the world, and certainly Jamaica is one that is on that list. It's particularly special for me in personal level because my father's Jamaican, which has been exciting for me. And also, I mean, this picture I could talk about forever because this guy in the background here, Dr. Patrick Roberts, who is arguably the top cancer surgeon now in Kingston, Jamaica. He trained here at the University of Toronto. His story is an unbelievable one, but he's just a fantastic surgeon, but also a super nice guy. And so that was kind of neat for that picture. But our relationship between Sunnybrook and Jamaica is kind of neat. The other thing about Toronto, the percentage of Torontonians that are Jamaican or of Jamaican heritage is huge. It's a huge demographic group in our city. And that's another reason.
It looks like an historical
Yeah.
photo right
Yeah.
there. And this is another one. This seems like the Hall of Fame of you, Dr. Cohen here. What were you guys doing? And where was this?
This is at something called the Update in General Surgery, which we here in Toronto run the largest general surgery course in Canada, and up to about 700 attendees every year. And so we're very proud of that. It's the University of Toronto sponsors it, but the faculty or the teachers are all University of Toronto surgeons. But one of the reasons when I look at this, I smile, it's Dr. Paul Bernick there on Dr. Cohen's left and me on Dr. Cohen's right, is that Dr. Cohen, who of course, as you probably know, is well known in media circles because of his supervision and leadership in Mayor Ford's care, but Zane also is a great friend and mentor of mine, and Zane's someone who's known me since I was a student, and obviously he's been one of my most important and favorite teachers from over the years.
Wow, that's phenomenal. And this was a summer concert you went to at the Molson Amphitheater. What concert was this? And was it Tim McGraw, if I was correct?
That was Tim McGraw. Yeah. This is from the Tim McGraw concert, and gosh, yeah, I think I tweeted this. So I am a bit of a country music closet country music fan at times. Truth is, I like all kinds of music, everything from opera to heavy metal and everything in between. But I'm hoping to go again this year. Is something that together with my daughter and some of my brother and his daughter, kind of like going to Tim McGraw.
Sure.
He seems to be nonstop working and comes every year. So he Tim McGraw at the Molson Amphitheater is good times.
A blast.
Yeah.
And you love to read. This Michael Jordan book you really enjoyed.
Yeah.
I never read it. I want to read it after seeing that, but what was so good about the book?
So the thing about biographies is, it's interesting to read fiction, but I like real stories because, the saying that sometimes truth is stranger than fiction or more interesting. And this biography of Jordan I like because it pulls no punches. It's sort of covers the good, the bad, and the ugly. With the possible exception of Tiger Woods and Wayne Gretzky in their primes, I would have to say Michael Jordan is the most dominant athlete that I've ever had the experience of seeing and watching his career, as we all saw. And of course, Michael's a complex character, but just an unbelievable talent. And the other thing that comes out of that book is really how a guy like Phil Jackson was able to coach and hold the team together, and how they interacted. And listen, 6 championships, and then everything that went around it. I mean, Jordan is where the bar is set. Very few have reached a higher bar than Michael Jordan.
It looks like a great read. For medical students out there that are trying to get in medical school, besides hard work, what is the greatest advice you would give to them?
There's no question. I want to take this back to the top of the interview. If you want to go into not just medicine, healthcare in general, I personally think it's the kind of greatest profession you can go into. And why do I think that? It's because first of all, it's hard, it's demanding, it's interesting, and it's so rewarding to see how you can impact the lives of patients and their families. And that's the advice. Go into it because you love it. It is absolutely rewarding and so fulfilling, but go into it for absolutely the right reason, namely that you want to be part of the How Can I Help business.